And welcome back into the Beers and Bald Show. My name is Eddie, and as always, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, I'm joined by the college football expert, the big dog, as Archie Griffin, fan of the show, likes to call him, my dad. What's up, Dad? How the hell are you?
I'm doing well. I was glad Archie called me the big dog. So,
Archie, 2-time Heisman Trophy winning Archie Griffin. Now, Dad, we want to get on and talk today because we've had some movement in this college football playoff on who Ohio State's going to be playing. Come, what is it, New Year's Eve they play?
yep.
And it's going to be the Miami Hurricanes who defeated the Texas A&M Aggies in Kyle Field. Now, what are a few things that you saw from this Miami Hurricanes team that either give you some worry and maybe you see some deficiencies in them that Ohio State can take advantage of?
Well, the first thing I was scared by was the score of the game. You know, when they play like that, you can't assume that that's going on the next time they play. So we got to put that aside. Uh, their defensive line, especially their DNs, were awesome, and I don't think they're going to slow down anytime soon. So we got to be prepared for that. The running back, March Fletcher, he was a commit to the Bucks for about 5 or 6 months, and then at the right last minute, he took the bag of money and went down to Miami. But he showed in that game he was man of over boys. And the last thing is the wide receiver number 10, the little guy. You know he came out of high school 1 year early, and he's 17, and he was the only guy that scored the touchdown that game. And he's one of those players that every time he gets his hands on the ball, he could take it to the house. So those are the biggest things that I'm concerned about with this Miami team.
And we're going to dive a lot deeper into that Miami Texas Tech game or Texas A&M game. Excuse me. And into how Ohio State is going to prepare for this game, what they've done up to this point, and what they're going to do in over the next 2 weeks to get ready for this. Before we do that, oh man, cheers to you.
Great.
Happy almost Christmas Eve, almost Christmas Day. I love you. Cheers
All
to
right,
you.
love you too.
Now for our millions and millions of viewers that we have, I'll be in the hometown this weekend to hang out for Christmas, and we'll be doing another recording on Friday, kind of diving deep more into this Ohio State team and how they're gonna really overcome it at a different angle. So be on the lookout for that about Saturday or so. That'll come out. But until then, I want to talk about this Miami offense. I mean, they're led by Carson Beck, Georgia transfer. The kid can throw the football. That's for one. I don't know if they have the same level of weapons that Ohio State has. I mean, it's not even close, the amount of weapons they have. But they have some really good cornerstone pieces. And I think it's all brought to you by their head coach, Cristobal. What do you know about Cristobal? What do you think about Cristobal?
Well, the good news was he was at Oregon, and he did a very good job out there. Uh, he got to Miami, and I think he's a good coach. But one of the things I'm concerned about Miami is they have a ton, I mean, a ton of talent on that team. But with NLI, they used a lot of money to get those true athletes down there. The thing I think they're missing right now is that they don't know how to use all those guys together. And if you don't get all those guys on the same page, just raw talent doesn't win these games in the playoffs.
And I could agree with you absolutely because it's not Jimmy's and Joe's, it's X's and O's when you're in the playoffs. Jimmy's and Joe's will get you through and to the playoffs, but X's and O's will elevate you to that national championship spot. I mean, saw it last year with the Ohio State Buckeyes. It was a lot of play calls, a lot of 4 or 5 plays that are dialed up the right way, get you to that position. Now, they love getting Tony the ball, number 10.
Yeah.
That's like their stud. They love manufacturing ways, whether it's jet sweeps, whether it's screens, whether it's quick slant routes. The play he scored on in that only touchdown in that game was on a jet sweep. And he can get lost in the muck when you got a bunch of big bodies running around. But I think that the Buckeye linebackers, the dog and Styles and Caleb over the top are going to be able to shoot those lanes because they just have pure athleticism and speed and the fundamentals to lock those things down with Curry and Jackson setting those edges. So I think that is a big advantage that Ohio State's going to have for this game.
Well, obviously, their two biggest weapons are Tony, the wide receiver, and Fletcher, the running back. You got to handle both of them differently. The running back, when he hits those holes, you got to be, it's the beginning of the war. You got to go in there, muscle up, and tackle him. Arm tackling is not going to work in this game. Okay, he's a player, but you gotta get angry when you tackle him. Now, Tony, he can take it to the house. So you gotta look at your angles. How do you approach it? How do you have help? Use your help. Use the sideline to be your friend. And he's gonna have some plays because he's a true athlete. But you got to be prepared to use everything that you have to help slow him down.
And that is all comes back to with, at this point in the year, do you think as a head coach, Ryan Day is telling, his coaching staff, like position by position, get back to the fundamentals? Because you've gone so far in the season, you're playing so much, a lot of people are banged up. Let's get back to the fundamentals of, especially coming off that loss to Indiana where you had a rough time at the offensive line. There were some missed tackles. Let's get back to blocking the correct way, tackling the correct way, do the little things, and then when the big things come, we're going to go ahead and take care of that because that's what we're here for. Is we're going to take care of the big things, but the little things, letting those things go, those are just like little slashes on the body that they just bleed out over time. It's not a puncture wound, but it's something that's just going to keep bleeding time after time. It's like, what do they say, death by 1,000 paper cuts? That's the little things. You got to take care of those.
Well, they need to come out and play their game, okay? You got to throw caution to the wind and go out there and use your players to win this game. But the biggest thing is Day says he's going to call the plays, okay? I've seen him do it real well against the Clemson Tigers in the playoffs, but also last year against Michigan, he didn't, he played scared. So he needs to step up, and he's going to ask everybody else to step up. Well, he needs to make himself an example, and this play calling has got to be aggressive, okay? I say this every time they play. They got to come out at the beginning of the game and do something, that shows that they're going to be aggressive this game. And Indiana, he didn't play that way. And he didn't make the adjustment at halftime, and that's why they're into that situation where it came down to time the game with a kicker. And, sometimes that doesn't work for you. So he needs to come out, play hard, and call up some plays that they have there and really attack them. And I think at some point, if he does that, he'll be successful.
Do you think him taking over play calling was more of a heartline thing or of him being in the moment during that Indiana game where he saw the play calls were playing not to win, but playing not to lose? And in his mind, he was saying, we need to be taking dagger shots right now. We're up a score. We need to be attacking instead of the plays that transpired there. Or do you think it's more of a heartline going to USF and he's just wanting to kind of make it easy for Hartline, not too much pressure on him, and just say, hey, make sure the wide receivers are good on all their routes, all the plays are good. Basically just demote him back to being a wide receivers coach, and Day taking on more of the role so that this team, wherever it goes, lives and dies on Ryan Day.
Well, whatever happened in Indiana, I don't know who was at fault, but it didn't work. All right. So Day is saying, okay, now I'm going to take control of this. And as a head coach, that's what you got to have to do. You got to lead the players. And what he's saying to the players is, it all starts with the plays I call. So you can hold me responsible for that. So if he gets off to a great start, it's great. But if he gets off to a slow, he's got to look in the mirror and say, it's me. I believe in him, and I think the only thing that holds him back is himself. So I've seen him do a great job, like I said, in the Clemson games. I mean, he was throwing it all over. He was dialing up running plays, different things. They didn't know how to defend us. But then other games, like the Indiana game, he didn't use his weapons. And that's the last thing you want to be blamed for at the end of a game, that you didn't use your best players. So I think he's going to come out this just like they did last year in the playoffs, and he's going to use everybody and they're going to pull some things that we haven't seen before, and he's really trying to put the foot to the pedal and come out as fast as he can.
And I think it's really commendable for him to come out 2 weeks before the game is and saying that he's going to take out on play calling. Because that's something that he doesn't have to come out and say. He can hold all those cards all the way up to game time. Hell, he doesn't have to tell anybody that. That's not something he has to be forthright with. But what this is showing that this is, again, his team. And because I think there might be a small little voice in the back of his head that he's had so much success because Chip Kelly was calling the plays last year, right, for a large percentage. Brian Hartline's having the success. The hell is Ryan Day used for? Because you get a lot of talk about Brian Hartline's recruiting, and these are all conspiracies. They're anything true to the words I'm saying. But I'm sure a lot of Buckeye fans are thinking the same thing that I'm saying right now. Is what is this guy for? And I think he puts himself in a great place, not only to be the hero when they succeed, but also be that top candidate for a hands-up accountability if it goes bad. Where it's, I am the leader of this team. I am the leader of the Ohio State Buckeyes football team. Whether we succeed or fail will be through me, and I just cannot give him enough respect coming out 2 weeks before the game, telling the national media, letting Miami know that I'm going to be the play caller, and whether this goes good or bad, I'm going to be the one that I will fall on the sword before I blame anybody else.
Well, that's exactly the way I see it, too. I mean, whatever was going on in the end game, it didn't work. So what he's trying to do for his team, and he says, like you said, I'm called the plays. So if anybody has a problem how the plays were called, right here. I'm right here. It's my fault. Harline's going to help me. He knows a lot of stuff going on, and he can help. But at this point, I think it's best for me to step forward and take charge. And that's what this team is looking for. I mean, I couldn't believe he didn't take advantage of his best players in that game. And he could blame Harline, other coaches or whatever. But in this game against Miami, it's him. It's him. And he's done that.
And I think a lot of that maybe rubbed him the wrong way because everybody and their brother was trying to find somebody to blame for that game because it was hard to blame Day because he didn't have a lot of, I guess, direct coaching involvement into the game outside of timeouts and maybe some situational stuff because that's what his role is because you got Matt Patricia calling defense. You got Brian Hartline calling offense. He's just trying to make sure he can contain the game within timeouts, letting everybody know what the situation is. I think it maybe just rubbed him the wrong way where he's like, if anybody's taking accountability, it's me that needs to take this because he's the one that goes up he's the first one to talk at the end of a win or a loss to the reporters, and as a head coach and as a man, you want to sit there and say it was on me. You don't want Julian saying that he could have made 2 or 3 more plays. You don't want Jeremiah Smith saying he could have made 2 or 3 more plays. None of that. This is on me because I am the deciding factor on everything that goes, and I think that he didn't have enough big enough role in that Indiana game that allowed him to go up there and say with confidence. I mean, I know he still said it, but with confidence saying this was on me. And I think in a weird way, this is going to help with recruiting because it doesn't put a bunch of pressure if he comes out here and calls stellar games throughout the playoffs about recruits going in the future. We don't know who the play caller is going to be because it's going to be fucking him.
Right. Well, I think he's, whatever happened, and we don't know whether it was Harline or Day or whatever, he just said, push all that stuff aside. This is me. I'm calling the plays, and we're going to use all of our weapons. I mean, if you got those guys, you got to use them. And tight ends, putting people in positions where they're covering other guys, there's going to be somebody wide open out there that we haven't heard of. Don't get him the ball. I mean, every player on that field for the Buckeyes are best of the best, okay? And then any of them can make a play. So what he's going to try to do is to get off fast, and when you do that, is spreading that ball all over the field. So when the defense comes out there for Miami and goes, are they going to pass? They're going to run it. Are they going to go to tight end? But they got 3 of them in there. Are they going to run it? They're going to pass it. When all that stuff's going through their heads, that's when you got them. And you can run anything you want, and most of the time it will be successful.
I think you make a great point there, especially with the tight ends, because with a guy like Claire, you can push him out into the slot and still bring in your whoever the backup tight end is and still have him attached. He's that good of a receiving threat. You can have him split out. So you can play a lot of different 12 personnel where you have two tight ends out there. And I think that was kind of the thought process when I look back at the game and exactly what you just said, where you want to have multiple tight ends out there. But the problem is they didn't get any of those guys out in routes because there was too much pressure on saying as soon as he snapped the ball. We had the right thought process, but the interior pressure was too much to overcome to do that. And I just don't think they had a game plan until later in the game to overcome that. And that has to be, and you have to think this, Dad, that has to be a big emphasis on going into this game is they got 2 great edge rushers, but let's not overly think on the edge. Let's make sure our guard positions are together. Yeah. Let's make sure we have those right guys there. Even if it's the second guy they brought in at right guard at the second half of the Indiana game, let's make sure we have our best 5 out there. Because when you have your best 5 out there, I'd put them up against any defense in college football.
Well, the guy that came in late is the guy that's starting this week at guard. On the defensive line, they have a guy, Miami has a guy named Scott. He was another guy committed to us. But the NLI guy showed up at him and he decided to come down to Miami. But they're going to be tough up there. And it's going to start with the offensive line. I think they have a lot of confidence in their ability. They just didn't play very good. There's a lot of packages came in there and things like that. And, in my mind, they're not bad. They just had a bad game, okay? And
it's human nature. Humans make mistakes. And that was one of those games where 5 humans made plenty of mistakes that led to this bad game.
Yeah, so I expect them to play a lot better this week, even though the defensive line I'm concerned about, their ability. But, I think, we've seen guys like this before, and I think if we play our game, like I always say, play our game, not their game, play our game, and I think we'll be successful because if they're getting in too fast, you go out in the flats, get passes to the running backs, those bubbles screens and things like that, that slows them down a little bit. But you got talent to do that, so let's do it. You've got to come into that game as that they should come in saying, I'm going to play this thing for 40 minutes, and we're gonna play hard. And I'm gonna call the when I see what I see out there. I'm gonna counter it with something else, and we'll just keep going. Back in those Clemson games, he he threw things out there that the defense wasn't even set up for, and it blew their mind. He can do that again in this game. I don't think they have the coaching staff that we have, and I think that's going to be a big advantage for us.
And I think a part of that Indiana loss was an emotional letdown. And I think losing that game going into this one is the best thing that happens for them because now you get, almost 3 weeks to refocus before the game kicks off. And you got that chip on your shoulder again, where you start to focus because you've been beaten. You get humbled. Now, it's all right. No, everybody can get better because you just lost. So everybody has room to improve. When a little bit earlier, it was tough to find improvement because you were winning, and winning cures all things. And you can always look back at the tape and, we want to fix this and we want to fix that. But that tape looks a lot harder to watch when you lose than versus when you win.
Right, right. Well, the thing is, they've had 3 weeks before they play. Well, I'm worried about that too, because it was a bad taste in your mouth that week off of that, and then you say, okay, we go another week, get back. Now on the third week, these guys, they play week to week, beat up, but they know how to play at the highest level. When you give them 3 weeks, that's a problem. I think it's going to be an advantage for Miami because they played that game and they've had 2 weeks to get ready for this. So I think they'll benefit from the break, but I'm a little concerned about the 3 weeks.
And I definitely think there is a right for concern or a right for caution. Maybe not concern in my mind, but definitely caution because especially when you're a team that you want to come out fast, it's hard to when you haven't gotten punched in the mouth in 3 weeks because you can only do so much in practice because you don't want to get hurt in practice, So you can only limit the violence so much. But this is the tempo of the Ohio State Buckeyes is going to come through Ryan Day. And I think by him also taking that head coaching now into play caller is him diving full into him understanding the mountain he has to overcome now because even it was great to have that first round bye, but at what cost does that first round bye come? Because like you just said beautifully, the best time to play after a loss is immediately because you have that bad taste in your mouth. Once you start getting a couple weeks off, if I'm Ryan Day, I'm doing everything I can to piss these guys off, to piss them off all week, get them as mad as they can going into this game. Whereas I don't want to look at this guy. I want to go hit somebody. I hate looking at this offensive line. If I'm like Curry, I don't want to fucking look at this right tackle. I want to go punch Miami in the mouth. Because all the shit you had to get put through where you're like hating on them for a week. You're having like a hate watch of the film. And you're really laying into these guys to really rile them up. Because it's like, okay, you were good all year. You missed here, you missed here, you missed here. And then you do it again the next day. You miss here. And you just really driving it home to piss them off because that's all you can do. You can't be jolly good fellas all 3 weeks. Hey, you guys are great. No, you sucked against Indiana. That's point blank. You sucked. You should have scored 45 points. You scored 10. You sucked. Yeah. And you got to light a fire in some of these guys' asses. And especially now with the way college football is, you can make it a little bit easier. It's like, you're expendable. Now, I probably didn't say that, but you can use some words to be like, you want to play here next year, you better get your ass ready. Or I can replace you. I can spend $500K and replace you with somebody. Not that they're actually going to say that, but that should be somewhere in the mentality of these coaches to fabricate pissed offness.
Yeah, like you used to do your dad. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that, and he has to put them in game time positions, during the practice and things like that. So they'll have that edge. You know, they're doing something, I keep, I don't talk about it very much, but they're trying for the first time to go back to back for Ohio State. And anytime you try to go back to back, it's hard. It's harder than, it's not just looking at the team, but you know, they could stumble at any point like they did against Indiana. So he's got to have these guys hungry, angry, and ready to play. And that's where the 3 weeks is not working in your favor. But we'll see what happens.
No, you're definitely right in that, and I think you just hit on an absolute amazing point where in practice you have to simulate those high pressured 2 minute drills. You know, red zone, especially red zone, because that's the place they lacked in that Indiana game is they just screwed up in the red zone. You know, you had a turnover on downs with a say and knee, which he lives with that call. I'm fine with the call. A bunch of people said you should have brought in the backup quarterback, but Sayan's my quarterback. I want him in the game if he's healthy enough to be in the game. And whatever I live with that call. If I wanted the backup quarterback in, I'd start him. That's my thought process with the backup quarterback. Now, kind of transitioning a little bit, this Miami front has some really good players, and one that comes to mind who's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft is Reuben Bain Jr. He's number 3, and he's one of just a few guys they got that can get to the quarterback. Do you see any change in Sayan's kind of progression speed after coming off the game where he was hit a lot?
Uh, you know, he knows that this is football, okay? And some days, you're going to get a perfect pocket and you'll throw all day. We got to also learn how to do it when these guys are coming on us. And they know these guys can do that. So you just prepare for that. And it all comes down to if they get in there, what are you going to do? Okay? And the worst thing you could do is just chuck the ball down the field and hope somebody catches it. Well, sometimes the guy on the other team may catch it. So you got to be smart. You know where your outlets are, or throw it away. So he's gonna, he's had a pretty good year this year. But as we get down the road, teams are getting tough. Everybody on that team is hungry, and this is an opportunity to show that they belong there. So he'll have to make some very smart decisions that it won't amount to much, but it saved something that you could have done wrong.
And we got a ton of more player analysis coming up right after this. Now, Dad, talk to me about Bo Jackson. Does he need to be more involved in this offense? Where was kind of maybe the miscues in this Indiana game that you see Ryan Day now being the play caller on how he can get improved a little bit more and get Bo Jackson back on track, running downhill and making guys miss?
Well, the first thing they have to do is establish the run. And, he's the best runner they have right now. And they need to use him a lot, early in the game. But at the same time, I don't think he has, as a freshman, the ability to run it more than 20 times. So you got to put some other guys in there and give him a break and things like that. Now, next year he'll be much stronger and he'll be bigger and he'll be able to do it. But, you just got to know how to pace him. And the coaches there know it better than I do. But he is a tremendous, and any play out there, he can break it, and he runs hard and he hits those gaps so fast. And, he 3 times in a row for 1 yard. The next one, he goes the same thing, but he busts it so fast and he's out there for 20 yards. So, you got to keep him fresh, but I think we got to give him the ball at the same time.
And one thing I really liked that Ohio State did, especially starting that second half, was running him out of the pistol set instead of out of the traditional gun. It allowed him, before he even took the ball, to be two steps at minimum going downhill before he got the ball, and he allowed him to see the entirety of everywhere it goes. There was one play in particular that it was supposed to be a run to the left. Right, there's going to be a power left out of the pistol. He cuts it right, he bends it right back in on that long run.
Yeah,
More of that, because you still get the premise of shotgun, but you also get the benefits of an under center for a runner. And I want them. Maybe Ryan Day sees a little bit of that, and I hope he implores that, because I love the pistol formation. Is my favorite. I love it. Pistol is my favorite, bar none, formation in football, because it's the best of both worlds. You can still run RPOs. You can still get passes out to the flat. You can still have deep developing routes down the field. And then you can establish a downhill running game, because in the shotgun, you're having to take a step horizontally most times, and not even if it's up 6 inches. Before you're taking your second step, you're generating too much power horizontally before you're getting vertically. And I always liked getting vertical first on my first step more than horizontal, just like I'm sure a ton of running backs in the league do as well. And it's a lost art is the pistol formation, and I loved watching it. I hope Ryan Day employs it more in this game against Miami, with especially a team that their edge rushers are planning on, they're rushing the quarterback and tackling and playing the run on the way to the quarterback. That's their whole plan, is we're going to play the run on the way to the quarterback.
Yep. Well, I think, they're going to have to find schemes that they have, the running backs block. You're not going to run Ohio State unless you can block. And they're going to have to step up in this game big time. And the tight ends are going to have to play a role in that. They're going to have to chip on on the defense ends. Regardless whether they're blocking or going out, they're going to have to hit them. So, but the thing he's going to have to know, now I'm talking about saying, is if the dike breaks, where do I go? And every time he goes to the line, he's going to look around and he'll say, I have a guy out here. Okay, let's go. And that's what he's going to have to be prepared for in this game.
He just has such a good peripheral feel for where guys are when he's in the shit in between the big uglies. He always have this peripheral feel of, there's a hole here and there's a guy coming here. Like, Bo Jackson never runs the ball where it's just like, I'm running to the B gap because that's what the play call is for. He always has a really good feel of where everything is, and that's what makes a great running back great. Now, moving to the best player in football. 8 catches was great for Jeremiah Smith. That ain't enough when he's the best player in college football.
No, and that's one of the things Day always said. If you don't know where to go to Smith. You could throw it up high, and he's the one to go and get it. So I think you're going to see, if they continue on to the championship, it's going to be because of him. Okay, you got to play him. And then when you start, targeting Smith, that means the other guy is going to be they're going to start, trying to stop him, and Tate will be wide open. And then Ennis, with his best route, is that slant into the middle. And most of the time, when you have a defensive line that's coming forward, well, that middle's wide open, and that's where he's really effective at. So you got to think, these are the plays we're going to have to do to be successful. But if things break down, this is what we got to do. And saying is, he's really surprised me. First of all, I always concerned about his height, and that never seemed to be a problem. And I saw that Heisman Trophy broadcast, and when that quarterback from Vanderbilt was next to him, he was looked about 6 inches shorter than him. I said, well, maybe our guy's bigger. But I've never seen that be a problem playing at this level. So, he's smart. He's got to continue to play the game he plays.
And I think you hit on everything that I was getting ready to tee you up for right there. So before we move over to the defense, let's drink some beer. Let's drink some beer to the offense, saying figuring it out. I did get a little bit premature there. I do have one more question for you on the offense before we move to the defense. Do you think a large part of Ryan Day, because I think it's the biggest headline, it's got to be the biggest talking points on every talk radio show in Columbus right now, is Ryan Day taking over play calling? I mean, it's got to be the number one thing talked about right now. Do you think a lot of that has to also take into account because he trusts Sayin so much that he knows kind of the play calls that he feels most comfortable with comparatively to maybe Will Howard last year or even the quarterbacks before him, that he's like, this guy, I am so comfortable with him. I have ultimate trust in this guy that I can call plays for him to a level where he's not playing conservative, where he can be, let's take some shots down the field.
Well, that's separating the two quarterbacks in the summer. He got comfortable with what Sayin was doing to ball. And to Ryan, he doesn't want any turnovers. Okay, so he saw that in Saying, and as the way he brought him through the year, he didn't do much at the start, but he started, and then he started picking it up, and Day certainly, saw that. But I think Day, one of the things he does when he calls the plays, he looks at the defensive strengths and weaknesses, and he tries to capitalize on the weaknesses. And one of the things he's always done in the past is when he goes into the halftime, he makes major changes. And I think that's one of the things you're going to see when he's calling what the game is going, the way it's playing out. He'll adjust and change, which when you have somebody else up there in the box or out in the field, are they changing or not? And I think that's one of the things that drove him to say, I think I want to call those plays now.
Do you think a little, to that point that you're saying, and I hope that I'm caveating on the right standpoint, is you think is there some a little bit more emotion that can go into these play calling where it's like, I know we need to get aggressive right now, and because I'm here, I'm in the moment, I'm in this energy, I'm on the field, I can feel the energy, and sometimes you put the play caller in the booth for them to stay out of the emotion of everything, and they can play it like Madden up there or college football video game, style. But you think, is he one of these guys, when he's at his best, is he kind of calling plays emotionally, where he's like, I need to go get it? Or like what has he done at his best? When you've seen him at his best against Clemson, what did he do right?
Well, the thing is just before the snapping the ball, Clemson would look at the offense and make adjustments just before they snap it. So what Ryan did was he kept them into the huddle, and all of a sudden they would break and they'd run up to the ball and play. So Venables was the defensive coach for Clemson. He couldn't make any changes. They were all looking at him, and when they were looking at him, they took off. So I think what Day thinks, and I think is the right thought, is he wants to impact that game on the emotion, what he sees. When he was in New Hampshire, he was a quarterback. And Chip Kelly used to say he would make changes while he was out there. Well, I think he wants to do that at this point because the last game, the outcome wasn't what he was looking for. So he said, rather than say, well, I'm going to interject in there and that, he said, just wipe that away. I'm going to take it, and it's on me. And for all the reasons you said, plus other ones. So I think he's going to do I think he's going to come out, he's going to show a lot of new things, and to think he wants the defensive guy on Miami goes, who do we cover? What defense do we go into? And a couple times when they get through there and they dump it off and we get 20 yards, that's going to throw them all off. And I think that's really what Day wants to do.
You know, Dad, you've done a great job kind of teeing me up for my next thing that I wanted to talk about. And the thing you hit on today was how good he was at Clemson and just being like, we're going to go traditional football, huddle up, come up, snap the ball. It's like a weird way of doing like a no huddle offense where we're in here, we're calling play, we're going up and playing it. Now, do you think now with being able to communicate with a quarterback, do you think he maybe takes on this different pro style sense where he comes out, he gives saying 2 plays in the huddle, runs that huddle system, not too hurry up, just hey, get in the line. I'm giving you 2 play calls, and you get up to the line, and then I'm giving you the reins on if whether you want to can it or check to the second play call, or if you want to run it, and then you can kind of employ that same tactic that gave him success against Clemson, where we're getting up, we're not caring what the defense is with these 2 play calls. I'm saying the rules where it's like we're either going to come out with a pass play, which is usually play one. Most teams in the NFL, when they can it, they're canning it to a run. So he can be like, all right, you don't like your look? Boom, can it, give to Bo Jackson for 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Do you think maybe he takes on that ability instead of looking to the sideline to see what he says? Or how do you think he's going to approach this?
Well, he's been on a journey with Satan when he started. You know, he was going to groom him through the whole year. And now, when we got into a difficult time, like Indiana, you know, he can't talk to him directly. He has to call Harline, and Harline talks to him. And maybe he doesn't get it to him or whatever. He hears what's going on, but he can't talk to him. Now he can. And I think he's at this point now that when Sane gets really challenged, he's going to work with him. He's going to say, this is what, if you see this, go here. You see this, go here. But just go with your gut. Feel the game, play the game. And he's going to do everything he can to get Stan to play the way he wants him to play. And I think the easiest way he saw that to happen is I call the plays.
And I think for this to be the utmost success, you have to also kind of give Matt Patricia some sort of like head coach leniency. So when the defense is on the field and they need a timeout, Matt Patricia can call that timeout so that Ryan Day can go over to the offense when defense is on the field, because that's kind of the advantage you get with having an OC that calls plays, is that head coach can facilitate the game. But when you're making a change like this, because I see the Packers do it all the time, Matt LaFleur will go sit with Jordan Love and give all autonomy to the defensive coordinator to call the timeouts and basically be the head coach of when the defense is on the field. And the thing you just brought up perfectly is that now with Ryan Day calling the play calls, they can get right there on the tablet and be like, hey, you see these two high safeties? Yeah, but this guy was maybe a yard or two off, and that was their initial disguise of coming maybe down to a cover 6, cover 3 robber, or your traditional cover 3. It was just a pre-play design or disguise, and we can work out of this. And you can sit there and have this like actual human to human interaction where it's like, hey, we're good. Instead of just hearing it on the phone, we're good. You're right next to him. Slap him on the chest. We're good. You're going to see it. You got this going, and I'm right here if you need me. You just look right over to me, and I got you, instead of kind of having that island of the play caller being up in the stands.
Well, I don't know if Day's going to go back there, look on the iPad and look at it, but he'll be interacting with him all through the game, wherever what's going on. But he does have, a very good defensive coordinator. He has the number one defense for some reason, and it's probably him. And they're playing lights out, so he can monitor that, but he can still be thinking, what did in that last offense series? How do we can change? So he has the ability to change his, don't is split his focus between what's going on with the defense and what we have to do to attack. And I think it's a perfect, I've seen Day times when the defense wasn't that good. It was hard on him because he wanted to help the defense and try to help the offense at the same time. And it made it tough for him to get through it. I think he has a good opportunity here to continue to groom Saiyan, and he knows he's got faith, total faith in Patricia to do the job on the defense.
And that's where I think this benefit, before we move to the defense, I think this benefits this time off because you can almost simulate these things. You know, you can simulate the second team offense being on with the first team defense kind of going through with Julian Saint on the sideline there. And you can manufacture like these type of outcomes to come where maybe Matt Patricia needs to call a timeout here and he has the autonomy. You're not saying that that's maybe the end-all, be-all, but you got a guy that knows a lot of football, prior head coach, longtime coach. He did great. He can facilitate everything, utmost trust with him there. So I wouldn't be surprised. I know you were a little skeptical if he'll be there on the bench with him. I think that's at least for the first game, the best start, especially if you're trying to communicate at the highest level with your quarterback series in and series out, especially if it's a 4 or 5 play and punt kind of game, where it's a tug of war. Now to move over to the defense, I might get mad if I see Arvell Reese in a quarterback contain or in a spy ever again.
Well, certainly Beck is not going to run here.
I don't care against anybody. Yeah. You have too much talent on that team to take your best edge rusher and him be absolutely useless in just chasing down guys that are going to run out of bounds. It is just beyond me why you allow him to stand and just run to run instead of attack.
Well, there's a lot of people are saying he may be the number one pick for the NFL. So, like we're saying about everything else, let him play, not babysit. Make him play, okay? I agree with that. But I think, they got a lot of talent down there. We just got to let them play. And, we need more out of our defensive line. I mean, McDonald is doing a great job. And
it starts and ends with him. With him, it's the whole game starts and ends with him.
I mean, they start running up and he stops it. I mean,
he's a top 10 pick too.
Yeah.
And has he been like this all year, or is he kind of just elevating his game kind of game by game? Because he kind of just came, at least in my purview of NFL mock drafts, he's kind of came a little bit out of nowhere when he solidifies like, oh, because those are a D tackle is a premier position in the NFL. So when you get a good one, he goes quick.
Well, we had one going early last year in the draft.
Yeah, Tyleik Williams to the Lions.
Yeah. So he was he had pretty good guys in there. But last year when McDonald played, he played good then. They knew they had a player in him, and they just got to continue to build on that. But I'll tell you the thing that you got to look at, and I'm probably going to be sorry for this. The way that Beck is playing at Miami is not the same he played in Georgia. And
it's not as vertical. It's not as vertical.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't try anything going down that game. When they on A&M, they didn't go down the field. And they weren't pressuring him that much. So it wasn't a big thing at that point. But, he didn't go down there. And he didn't look like the guy that was at Georgia when we played them. But, we'll see. But I think if they put pressure on him and, our corners are going to have to play good. IGB is going to have to stop grabbing. And, it's going to come down to those guys and how good they're going to play in the backside. I think the guys up front will do what they need to do to slow down Fletcher. But the D-backs are going to have to really slow down the passing game.
Yeah, I see a lot of the same defensive style that you played against Michigan with, where you will have a lot of base sets, where you have what was that extra backer? 26 Pierce?
Pierce? Yeah.
You have him more involved in his game because you want to take away that run. You want to make him more one-dimensional, and I think you can win up front. One of these games, I just think you gotta You got to be more aggressive if you're Matt Patricia here. Once you get him in those 3rd and 7s or more, you got to send them. We can't have too many 3-man rushes and just give it to him. You can't, like, that's playing too conservative in this game where this guy will give you the ball. You have to make him give you the ball, though. If you don't pressure him, just like any other quarterback in college football, they're going to complete throws when they have all the time in the world. But if you can get some pressure on them, you can get Curry coming off the edge. You can have Jackson coming off the edge. You can have Reese maybe doing a stunt up the middle, creating pressure, and then McDonald toughen up the middle there. The opportunities are there. I just want to hope that Matt Patricia thinks, in all costs, I believe in all of our guys, Igbo, Matthews, Downs, the other safety. If I got to put them in man coverage and send a cover 0, I have utmost confidence that they're going to be able to stick with them, and we're going to get somebody there to either get the sack, cause a turnover, or an errant throw. I just hated watching that game, showing way too much respect to Indiana by on 3rd and 8 blitzing 3 guys and having the dog in a spy. That was too much respect to a team that did not deserve it in an aerial passing scheme.
No, I agree with you on that. I think the better way is controlling that is putting pressure on them. And then you got the guys back there that can, got your back. They'll make the stops when they need to. So I'm with you on that. I think we've got to go with our guys up front, and then sneak Styles or the dog in there a couple times, and Downs can come from safety, and Patricia will bring in the corners in too sometimes. He'll send anybody, and he's got to get back to that. They don't know what they're seeing, and when they walk up to the line, and then he changes it to something else, that will challenge Beck, and I don't know if I wouldn't feel real good, if I had Beck against a really strong defense like this.
I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see a lot of that same chess game on defense that I saw in recent weeks against Indiana. I just didn't. I think I just saw a cookie cutter, like the game plan was, let's just try and get out of this clean kind of game. Let's not try and overdo it. Let's just try and, if we win, we win, but let's just try and get out of here clean with the most basic shit. Because there's no reason, and I'm going to come back to this because I'm harping on it because I don't want to see it again. And if I say it enough to the universe, it isn't for me. And that's going to be blitzing Styles and having the dog in a contain. Because there's so many times where Reese was in coverage and Styles was blitzing. And I was like, this is backwards. This is backwards. I don't understand this.
Well, they've got to play their game, and they're not going to have to worry about the quarterback running here. So he'll be out there, and you're going to have to use all of your guys, go back to shifting, and they don't know what's going on. Their game plan defensively last week was to stop the run. They didn't think they had receivers, and that guy that caught all those balls, over Matt, he just had a game off that he won't have again the rest of his life. So I'm glad for him. He had a couple weeks off where people, remember that. But, we just got to go in there and play our game, not play to what we're afraid they're going to do.
Yeah, and I think that does a great job of kind of circling us up, at least for right now, until we get more into it on Friday. Just a quick preview. The current line on the game is Ohio State is favored by 9.5 points. And just when, you said you hope it doesn't bite you because you're not scared of their area throw. Once you get in a dome, I think all that kind of goes behind. I don't even think about what Miami did on offense in that game. I think weather messed with them too much, and they probably overthought the weather and the wind too much in that game. So I'd rather watch them in the 10 or 12 other games beforehand. If I'm game planning for them, I'm watching those other 12 games. I'm not watching this game against Texas A&M, just because I think they played a little bit too scared. But when you're in a dome, you're on a racetrack. But let's transfer it over to Got any good Miami, Ohio State stories for me, Dad?
I got a lot of them from two the uh, championship game.
That was the first Ohio State championship game I remember. Kirk Krenzel and AJ
Well,
Hawk and the boys leading the way.
yeah, and you know, the thing is, when I started watching the Buckeyes, it was after they won the championship in '68. So, and I got upset my first year watching them, and we've been close, and we had a lot of good teams, especially 1999 or 1998. They should have won it, but they didn't. And up till 2002, I couldn't believe it. I mean, that whole season, they didn't have the best team, but they found a way, especially Krenzel, getting through that. And he found a way. He wasn't the best quarterback or whatever, but he was a winner. And he did what he had to do the whole game. Now, talking about the Miami game, the championship game, the third play, I think it was the second or third play, uh, they had the announcer saying all year Dorsey had been sacked 4 times, whole year. It was like the second play we sacked him, and that just blew. You could tell right away that blew Dorsey away. He said, and he was under pressure all the time. But the game started off with Kellen Winslow Jr. He was catching everything all over the place, and he was talking his trash the whole time. And they were moving the ball, but early on the defense got better and better and better. And as the game went on, stranger and stranger things happened during that game that you couldn't script it that way. And they were very successful that day.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Chris Gamble being the unsung hero at the end on a very controversial play, but it is what it is. Now, what was kind of the big plays in that game that kind of set it apart? Because, up until that point, I mean, wasn't it just 4 years before there wasn't a national championship game? There were just teams that were crowned as national champions. Am I
Well,
correct? Was it 98 that they changed it, or
no, that was the first year they went
the
with
first
that
year was
format.
like a national championship game?
Yeah, yeah, and they tried to get the two best teams. According to the polls and different ways they got to
Because it
that.
was the coaches poll, and then what was it, the AP poll came
Yeah,
together and made. Uh,
but no. At one time, you could have two different national
there was
champions.
one year with three.
Yeah. Well, that was UCF or wherever it was. But
Now,
you know,
what was the road for that 2000? Was it one or 2002? Right, it was a 2001 year, but the national championship was in 2002, right?
no, it's the other way. 2002 season, but ended in
What was the
three.
road for that game? Was that the year of the Ohio State Purdue like holy Buckeye year?
Every game that year. I mean, they didn't clobber anybody. They just got by playing Cincinnati. They were down in the fourth quarter against Cincinnati, and Krenzel picked it up. You know, we started off really fast because Claret came in this game out of nowhere. He was a freshman out of Youngstown, and he was pretty high ranked. But a freshman coming in there, well, he told the guys when he walked in there, "I'm gonna start in the first game," and he did. And he ran for about 176, and in the next game he went 220, and he was just unbelievable. I've never saw a guy, but I think it was the third or fourth game he got a stinger in his shoulder, and the whole rest of the year he was hurt, and he would come in there, play a couple plays, and someone hit him hard, and he went out. And so he did good towards the end. But the biggest story going into the championship game, the week of it, his best friend back in Ohio was shot and killed. And, you know, at that time, because the NCAA looked at this and said, just because, somebody has to go back, the, 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 the team had to determine whether he goes back or not. And because this was a friend, not a family, they told Claret, we're not going to pay for you to go back. If you go back, you're going to have to pay for it. Well, that created a big, big boo-ha about that. And a lot of people at times, Claret said, I'm not even going to play that week. And it was going back and forth. And, he started off, and Miami really shut him down. I mean, they had everybody worried about him, and they weren't going to let him get off. But about halfway through the second half, we threw an interception in the end zone. Sean Taylor picked it off, ran it out, and out of nowhere, Claret caught him. But he didn't tackle him, he tackled the ball. And he came up with that. And that changed that whole game. At the same time, in the second half, they had this guy called, I think, Willis McGahee.
McGahee, great running back in the NFL, Willis McGahee. Baltimore Raven.
Yeah. And see, the funny thing is, at that time, he was as good as Claret, but he couldn't do anything in the first half. In the second half, they were getting him the ball right and left, and he was ripping off 8 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards. Well, they tried this little, going around the corner on a run, and Will Allen for the Buckeyes came up there, and there was a couple blockers, so he went low to kind of try to take out his legs out. And when he did, he hit him square on the knee, and he actually tore his ACL on that play. And you could just see Miami was coming back. They were coming back. And Will Allen, if you knew the kind of player he was, he wasn't a player trying to hurt.
It wasn't like I'm trying to take his knee out, take him out of the game. It was just maybe like a momentum got pushed into that position. We also have to remember, like, the cleats that these guys wore on these fields. It's not as good as the technology used today, where his cleat might have gotten stuck in the ground to when he got hit, that ACL was just absolutely exposed.
Right. So, the thing is, that really, they were getting close, and but we stopped them, and unfortunately, and the good thing is he came back good career there, but he wasn't the same player he was that night, when he lost that knee. But we went back and forth on that, and we kicked the field goal towards the end of the regular time, so we were up by 3, and we were trying to run the clock out, and had to kick, a punt to the returner. I can't remember what his name. It wasn't Hester, but it was another guy that was just as good as he was. And he brought that thing all the way back to about the 30, our 30. And
last name Moss? Was it the human joystick? The human joystick?
That may have been him. I can't remember his name, but he was a, everybody knew he was really a good punt returner, and brought it back to about the 30, and we stopped them, and with seconds left, they tied the game. So, but then we went into overtime. Man, that was unbelievable, because Miami came out on that. They had the ball first, and it was going from the 25 in. It was about 2 passes, touchdown. No problem. Well, we get the ball. We can't do anything, okay? And actually, we got a holding on us. And it was down to fourth down and 14, and we were back at about the 40, and he hit his best receiver, Michael Jenkins, right on 15 yards down on the sideline, and it was a dead bullet that Craig didn't do very often, but this was a bullet, and it kept us alive. But it set up that last play, the fourth down, where. But the thing is, they always show it in the end zone. Well, when he got to the end zone, this guy had hands all over him. He was pulling his jersey and everything, and he let go. He jumped, and when he jumped, he grabbed him again. So, I mean, it was, and the only thing that was controversial about that is the ref went to get his flag, and he missed. He tried it again. He missed, and finally got it and throw it. Everybody said, but the thing is, when he knocked the ball away, Miami didn't see flags. They all said that we won the game, and they came out there. But the guy, when they showed he went back 2 times, and then the third time he got it and throw it, and that put us onto the first 1 yard line. Criswell, of course, went off tackle, touchdown. We got the ball back, and we were moving the ball down there, and Claret, probably his last run as a Buckeye, was for a touchdown against Miami. Okay, so they get the ball back. I never, I think the refs tried to make it up to Miami because they got about 3 or 4 pass interference going down the field. But finally, we stopped them. They kept running Walter Payton's son, Jarrett, and he couldn't do nothing against the Buckeyes. But, fourth down, it was like four yards to the end zone. And the defensive coordinator for Ohio State had a guy named C. Grant, who used to sing the national anthem before the games. He's number 6, and he was on the far right. Well, the Miami blocking scheme, for some reason, said, well, we got plenty of time. These guys aren't going to get our guy. They snapped at the Dorsey. By the time the ball got to him, no one even touched C. Grant on that outside, and he had hold of his jersey before he had a chance to even pass the ball.
That's when he did that pirouette.
Yeah, and it went, he threw it right to Nicky, but he dropped it, but it didn't matter. That was the end of the game. And as your dad, at that time I was, let me see, add this up. I think I was 43 at that time. And one of my teams, Browns, Indians, or Buckeyes, finally won a championship. I didn't know how to handle that. I mean, I had plenty of beer to help me get to that point, but I couldn't believe it. And I had a handful of friends over there, and all of them were Miami fans, except for Schultz, he was always hanging with me. But everybody else was against me. But at the end of the game, I just said, we won the championship. I couldn't believe it. Now, I've been blessed to see it again in 14 and 24. But they had other good teams that went there and just didn't play well in the championship. But that was your dad's, for the teams he pulled for, his first championship.
Yeah, and that was going to be the exact question I asked, was this like, as someone that was kind of championship deprived, like what was that initial, like, first gut feeling? Was it just like, holy shit, like this is why you watch, this is why you care right now, is this feeling, this is why you invest time and effort and emotion, it's for this? Then it happened, you're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can imagine, like, me seeing the next Green Bay Packers Super Bowl is, words, I don't know how to use them.
it was unbelievable. And now to the day I die, I'll remember. I know exactly where I was in the corner on that green chart chair in the corner, and the TV was in a different place at that time, and it was unbelievable. Now your brother, see, he would have been 12. No, I think he was only 11, but he tried to hang out. But about the game started about 8:30. By 10, he was
Yeah, I
upstairs.
was about 6. I was already down.
Yeah, it was, at that time, 8 o'clock, you went down. Your sister went down too. So, you know, but we had the dog Krenzel.
Oh yeah, it
You know,
was
he was there. He was
that
he's
that
watching the
dog
game.
Krenzel was the epitome of that 2002 Buckeyes team. He didn't go down easy.
Yeah. So it was it was a big day, and when you win your first championship like that, you'll remember that the rest of your life because every game that year, especially the Holy Buckeye, they just got by. Against Wisconsin, they were playing at Wisconsin, and back to back. It was third down. Krenzel took off. Got there was third and 10. He got 11. Well, in the next one, not only did he run it 10 yards, he went another 7 and scored. And that's the kind of player he was. He was not going to lose.
Did
And
you think that year that team was a team of destiny? Like, did you ever sit there and be like, this team? It's undeniable. This team's a team of destiny.
no, not really, because they were preseason. They were about number 15. Okay, and that Krenzel was starting, but he didn't show. Belisari just left, thank God. And you, the funny thing about Krenzel was the year before, his sister got married during the season on Saturday, and Krenzel went to Tressel and said, "Hey, I can leave this time. I can go to the wedding, and I can drive back to be at the game, and maybe after the start, but I'll be there." Tressel told Krenzel, "Hey, go and just have a good time. Don't worry about getting back." That's what he thought about Krenzel the year before, and now this cat was our starting quarterback, and he just refused to lose. There was one thing is after that game, he was going to Las Vegas, and the next day he got up. By that time, his amateur status was over, so he could. He took this trip to Las Vegas. He got on that. He was up all night. I'm sure he's had a cold ones away, and he got on that plane, and everybody recognized him right away, and they just stand up and give him a standing ovation to the guy that won that game because he would not go down.
And that's exactly the message Ryan Day has to live by. He's got to be relentless about winning right now. And I think that's the mantle that he's taken in this game is you have to have that will to win. Losing cannot be an option. You have to take any course of conservativeness and throw it out the window. That shit does not matter. We got to go win football games, and I think he's doing that exact thing by taking the accountability, taking the mantle, and saying we're either going to fucking beat the hell out of everybody or we're going to lose, but either way it's coming through me, and I'm the only person that's going to either help us get there or stop us from getting there. And that's the most commendable thing I can ask out of a head coach.
Well, that's the quality Krenzel had. There was a couple times there that the Miami team just teed off on him, and he'd stay down on the ground a little bit, and then he'll get up on his knees, and then his offensive guys will grab him, pick him up, get him back to the huddle, and then he'd come out and make a play, right after that. But I mean, that happened 2 or 3 times, and there was one time I think he was out on the field, but he just got back up and found out a way. And one time he had to throw it out of he caught a place, and I don't think he was all there, so he just whipped it out in the stands and said, "Okay, got another 30 seconds. I'll be ready." So, but I've never seen a player like that didn't have that raw talent to lead these guys, but they all fell in behind him, and that's why they're. And somebody's going to have to do that. Last year you saw different guys do it. Along the way, and he played the same way. He had more talent than Krenzel, but he was the guy that came into the game and said, "It all starts with me. I know that. Let's go, guys." And he played that way.
Yeah, I just hope Sain's mature enough to take that same mindset on, and I think he is, just based off the person he is. And I can't wait to get more into this on Friday, because we got to save some for the viewers, Dad, because we're gonna have another show on Friday. We got to save some of this magic.
Okay,
you're too much of a superstar for him. We can't give him all the all the meat and potatoes.
Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward down to come and see into that show. But last thing, Dad, anything you want to say to all your fellow Buckeye viewers out here before we talk to them again on Friday?
Well, first of all, have a happy enjoy your family. Everything that you do is for your family, and so enjoy the time with them. There's a few times when your kids get a little older, you don't get to see them all the time, and that's one of the things that I always look forward to. I have all my kids in here, and we'll have a good time this year, just like we have in the past.
Hell yeah, I can get behind with that. So make sure you all like, subscribe, comment down below. Make sure you tell my dad how much you appreciate the hell out of his stories, because I know I sure as hell do. And we can't wait to tell you some more stories on Friday. But until then, we love you. God bless you. Goodbye.